During our family Thanksgiving, my dad proudly announced he was selling the company to outsiders because none of his children were capable of running a real business. The business card I placed on the table revealed I was the CEO of the company that had been systematically acquiring all his major clients for 2 years. Before I dive into this story of family business betrayal and the most strategic corporate revenge imaginable, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever been underestimated by family members who should have believed in you, and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of corporate justice served with perfect timing. My name is Sarah, I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life I was the daughter who didn't understand business, according to my father. This story begins with a lifetime of being dismissed and ends with the most satisfying corporate acquisition in family business history. I grew up as the middle child in the Mitchell family, owners of Mitchell and Amp Associates, a regional consulting firm that my grandfather had founded in 1962. Company specializes in business efficiency consulting, helping mid-sized companies streamline operations and reduce costs. My father, Robert Mitchell, took over the business in 1995 after my grandfather's retirement. Under Dad's leadership, the company had grown from a small local firm to a respected regional consultancy with 85 employees and annual revenues of approximately $12 million. But success hadn't made my father more open-minded about who could contribute to the family business. I have two siblings, my older brother Tom, who's 37, and my younger sister Lisa, who's 30. From childhood, it was clear that Dad viewed business as a male domain where women could support but never truly lead. Tom was groomed from age 10 to eventually inherit Mitchell and Amp Associates. Despite showing no particular aptitude for business strategy or client relations, he was brought to the office every weekend, included in client meetings, and treated as the heir apparent. When Tom graduated from college with a mediocre business degree and immediately joined the company as Business Development Associate, nobody questioned whether he'd earned the position or simply inherited it. Lisa, meanwhile, was encouraged to pursue suitable careers like teaching or social work. Dad made it clear that while she was welcome to work at the company in administrative roles, she shouldn't expect to be involved in strategic decision-making. And then there was me. I showed genuine interest in business strategy from a young age, constantly asking Dad about client problems and proposing solutions that, looking back, were surprisingly sophisticated for a teenager. But instead of encouragement, I received patronizing dismissals. "That's sweet, Sarah," Dad would say when I'd suggest efficiency improvements for our clients, "but business consulting requires understanding complex organizational dynamics that take years to develop." When I chose to study business administration and computer science at Northwestern, Dad expressed skepticism about whether I'd be able to handle real-world business challenges. "College teaches theory," he told relatives during family gatherings, "but actual consulting requires intuition and experience that can't be taught in classrooms." Through graduation, I asked about joining Mitchell and Amp Associates in a strategic role. Dad's response was swift and definitive. "Sarah, honey, I appreciate your interest, but this business requires a certain type of personality. You're too analytical, too focused on data instead of relationships. Our clients need consultants who understand people, not just spreadsheets." The rejection stung, but it also motivated me to prove him wrong through independent success. Instead of arguing or begging for a chance, I moved to Chicago and took a position with Morrison Consulting, one of Mitchell and Amp Associates' larger competitors. My starting salary was modest, but I was determined to learn the industry from the ground up. Morrison specialized in technology integration consulting, helping companies optimize their operations through better software and automated processes. This focus on tech-enabled efficiency aligned perfectly with my combined business and computer science background. Within 2 years, I had been promoted to senior consultant. Within 4 years, I was leading major client engagements. By year 6, I was Morrison's youngest partner in company history. During family gatherings, Dad would occasionally ask about my little job in Chicago, but he never showed genuine interest in my career progression or professional achievements. "Consulting is consulting," he'd say dismissively when I'd mention successful client engagements. The real skill is building long-term relationships with business owners who trust your judgment. That takes decades to develop. Meanwhile, Tom was struggling in his role as Mitchell and Amp, Associates Business Development Lead. Despite having every advantage: family connections, client introductions, and dad's direct mentoring, he was failing to generate significant new business. From conversations with industry contacts, I learned that Tom had developed a reputation for over-promising results, delivering subpar analysis, and relying too heavily on the Mitchell name rather than demonstrating actual consulting competence. Several potential clients had specifically requested different consultants after initial meetings with Tom, though Dad seemed oblivious to his son's professional shortcomings. By 2019, I had decided to leave Morrison Consulting and start my own firm. 7 years of industry experience have given me extensive knowledge of client needs, competitive dynamics, and operational best practices. More importantly, I had identified a significant market opportunity that larger firms like Morrison were overlooking: small to mid-sized companies that needed sophisticated consulting services but couldn't afford the premium pricing of established firms. I founded Apex Business Solutions with $200,000 of personal savings and a clear strategic vision: provide high-quality consulting services at competitive prices by leveraging technology and streamlined operations. My first year was challenging but successful. I landed 8 clients, generated $180,000 in revenue, and established a reputation for delivering measurable results quickly and cost-effectively. More significantly, I began systematically studying Mitchell and Amp, Associates' client base and competitive positioning. As someone who had grown up hearing about the company's clients, strategies, and challenges, I had insights into their operations that external competitors lacked. By year 2 of Apex's operations, I had identified several of Mitchell and Amp, Associates' key vulnerabilities. First, their technology infrastructure was outdated. They were still using software and processes that had been adequate in 2005 but were increasingly inefficient compared to modern alternatives. Second, their pricing model was based on traditional consulting approaches that emphasized billable hours rather than measurable outcomes. Many clients were growing frustrated with expensive engagements that produced lengthy reports but limited operational improvements. Third, their client relationships were heavily dependent on Dad's personal connections rather than institutional strengths. As these contacts retired or changed companies, Mitchell and Amp, Associates was struggling to maintain relationships with new decision-makers. Fourth, Tom's performance as business development lead was actively damaging the company's reputation among potential clients. Several prospects had shared feedback about unprofessional interactions that had soured them on working with Mitchell and Amp, Associates. These vulnerabilities represented opportunities for a more agile, technology-focused competitor to systematically capture Mitchell and Amp, Associates' market share. My strategy was patient and methodical. Rather than directly competing for the same clients, I focused on winning business from companies that Mitchell and Amp, Associates had either lost or failed to serve effectively. When potential clients mentioned disappointing experiences with traditional consulting firms, I positioned Apex as a modern alternative that prioritized results over process. When companies complained about expensive consulting engagements that produced minimal operational improvements, I offered performance-based pricing models that aligned my compensation with client success. Most importantly, I leveraged my technology background to deliver services that Mitchell and Amp, Associates couldn't match. While they were producing static reports and recommendations, I was building custom software solutions, automated workflows, and integrated systems that created lasting value for clients. By 2022, Apex Business Solutions had grown to 15 employees and annual revenues of $2.8 million. We were winning clients consistently, generating strong profit margins, and building a reputation as the premier efficiency consulting firm in our region. During this period, family interactions remained superficially cordial but fundamentally unchanged. Dad continued to view my business as a small consulting practice that wasn't comparable to Mitchell and Amp, Associates' established market position. "It's nice that Sarah has her little company," he'd tell relatives during holiday gatherings, "but real consulting requires the kind of institutional credibility that takes generations to build." Tom's struggles at Mitchell and Amp, associates were becoming more pronounced, though Dad seemed determined to ignore the evidence. Company had lost 3 major clients in 2021 and had failed to win any significant new business despite Tom's aggressive sales efforts. By early 2023, I had decided to accelerate my competitive strategy. Instead of simply winning clients organically, I would begin actively targeting Mitchell & Amp, associates' existing client relationships. My approach was professional and ethical. I reached out to companies that had worked with Mitchell & Amp, associates in the past, offering Apex's services for new projects or areas where they might need additional consulting support. The results exceeded my expectations. Within 6 months, I had won consulting contracts with 4 of Mitchell & Amp, associates' current clients, and 3 companies that had previously worked with them. These clients consistently praised Apex's results-focused approach and competitive pricing. More significantly, several clients shared feedback about their experiences with Mitchell & Amp, associates that revealed the extent of the company's operational problems. "We kept getting the owner's son for meetings, and he clearly didn't understand our business," one manufacturing company's CFO told me. "We were paying premium consulting rates for advice from someone who seemed to be learning on the job. Their recommendations were always very general," another client explained. "Lots of analysis about what we were doing wrong, but no practical solutions for how to actually fix the problems." By fall 2023, the impact of Apex's growth on Mitchell & Amp associates had become significant enough that Dad began asking industry contacts about our firm. Through mutual connections, I learned that he had made inquiries about some new consulting company that's been winning business around town, without realizing he was asking about his own daughter's firm. The intelligence I gathered about Mitchell & Amp associates' situation was increasingly concerning. They had lost 6 major clients in 2023, revenue was down approximately 30% from previous years, and they were struggling to cover fixed costs with their reduced client base. Tom's failure as business development lead had reached the point where Dad had quietly reassigned him to strategic projects, which seemed to be code for keeping him away from potential clients. Most significantly, Dad had begun discussing the possibility of selling Mitchell & Amp associates to a larger consulting firm rather than risk further decline under continued family management. This information represented an unprecedented opportunity. Dad was genuinely considering selling the company. I could potentially acquire Mitchell & Amp associates through Apex and resolve the family business dynamics that had defined my entire life. I spent October and November 2023 preparing for this possibility. I consulted with business attorneys about acquisition procedures, met with potential financing partners about funding options, and conducted a detailed financial analysis of Mitchell & Amp associates' current valuation. Based on their declining revenue, client losses, and operational challenges, I estimated that Mitchell & Amp associates' fair market value had fallen to approximately $3.5 million, well within Apex's acquisition capacity given our strong financial position and available credit facilities. By Thanksgiving 2023, I had developed a comprehensive acquisition strategy and was prepared to make an offer if the opportunity arose. The opportunity arose exactly as I had hoped. Our family Thanksgiving dinner was held at my parents' house, with all the traditional Mitchell family attendees: Mom and Dad, Tom and his wife Jessica, Lisa and her boyfriend Mark, plus my aunt and uncle who had driven in from Indianapolis. Conversation naturally turned to business updates, as it always did during family gatherings. Tom gave a vague report about exciting new opportunities he was developing, though his lack of specifics suggested continued struggles. Lisa shared updates about office operations and administrative improvements, carefully avoiding any mention of the financial challenges I knew the company was facing. When the conversation turned to me, I offered a brief update about Apex's continued growth without revealing the extent of our success or our recent client acquisitions from Mitchell & Amp associates. Then, as we were finishing dinner, Dad cleared his throat and announced that he had important family business to discuss. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about the future of Mitchell & Amp associates," he began, his voice taking on the formal tone he used for serious business announcements. "The consulting industry has become increasingly challenging, with new competitors and changing client expectations. After 30 years of building this business, I've come to the conclusion that the best path forward might be to sell to a larger firm that has the resources to modernize operations and expand our client base. Table fell silent as everyone processed this unexpected announcement. I've had preliminary discussions with Morrison Consulting and 2 other firms about a potential acquisition, Dad continued. The offers aren't as high as I'd hoped, but they're fair given current market conditions. Tom looked devastated. Dad, I thought I was going to take over the company eventually. Son, I know that was the plan, Dad replied gently. But running a consulting firm requires skills and experience that take decades to develop. None of my children has demonstrated the kind of business acumen necessary to successfully lead Mitchell & Amp, associates in today's competitive environment. He looked around the table, his gaze briefly meeting mine. Sarah has her own business, which is admirable, but it's a small operation that doesn't compare to the complexity of managing an established firm with our client relationships and operational requirements. The dismissal was casual and absolute, delivered with the same condescending tone Dad had used to discourage my business ambitions for over a decade. So I've decided that the responsible thing to do is sell to professionals who can preserve what my father and I built while taking the company to the next level. As Dad finished his announcement, I realized this was the moment I had been preparing for. Perfect opportunity to reveal the strategic position I had been building for over 2 years. I reached into my purse and pulled out a business card, placing it on the table in front of Dad. Actually, Dad, I said calmly, I think you might be interested in discussing acquisition terms with Apex Business Solutions. He picked up the card, reading it with obvious confusion. Sarah Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer, Apex Business Solutions, he read aloud. I don't understand. Why would your small consulting practice be interested in acquiring Mitchell & Amp, associates? Because my small consulting practice has been systematically acquiring your major clients for the past 2 years, I replied, pulling out a folder I had prepared containing detailed information about Apex's operations and client list. Table went completely silent as I opened the folder and began reading names. Crawford Manufacturing, Henderson Logistics, Midwest Distribution, Taylor Industries, Precision Components, and Brookstone Services. All former Mitchell & Amp, associates clients who are now working exclusively with Apex Business Solutions. Dad's face went pale as he recognized the names of clients whose contracts his company had lost over the past year. Additionally, we've won consulting engagements with Riverside Manufacturing, Classic Automotive, and Metro Supply, 3 companies that specifically chose Apex over Mitchell & Amp, associates after comparing our service offerings. I handed him a summary of Apex's current operations: 15 employees, $2.8 million annual revenue, 98% client retention rate, and an average client satisfaction score of 4.8 out of 5. So when you say none of your children have demonstrated business acumen, I continued, you might want to consider that one of your children has built a consulting firm that's currently outperforming Mitchell & Amp, associates in client acquisition, retention, and profitability. The silence around the table was deafening. Tom was staring at the documents I had shared, his mouth slightly open. Lisa looked shocked but also impressed. My aunt and uncle were clearly trying to process what they were witnessing. Dad was scanning the financial information with the expression of someone trying to solve an impossible puzzle. How did you? He began, then stopped. How did I build a successful consulting firm without the decades of experience you said were required? I asked. The same way you and grandfather built Mitchell & Amp, associates, by providing better service than the competition, by understanding client needs, and by delivering measurable results. I leaned forward, making direct eye contact. But you're my daughter, Dad said, as if this fact somehow contradicted the evidence in front of him. Yes, I am. The daughter you told was too analytical, too focused on data, too inexperienced to contribute to the family business. I pulled out another document, a formal acquisition proposal. Apex Business Solutions is prepared to offer $4.2 million for Mitchell & Amp, associates, which is 20% above your estimated market value. We would retain all current employees, honor existing client contracts, and maintain the Mitchell name as a subsidiary brand. The offer was real. I had prepared it with my attorney and had financing commitments to back up the proposal. Additionally, I continued, I would offer Tom a business development role where he could learn modern consulting techniques under experienced mentorship. Lisa could transition to operations management with appropriate training and advancement opportunities. I looked directly at Dad. And you could remain as chairman emeritus, providing industry insights and client relationship guidance while transitioning to a reduced operational role. The acquisition proposal represented everything Dad claimed to want: preservation of the family business, protection for employees, and continued family involvement in company operations. The only difference was that instead of selling to strangers, he would be selling to the daughter he had consistently underestimated. Tom was the first to break the silence. Sarah, this is incredible. I had no idea you'd built something so successful. That's because Dad never asked about my business beyond dismissive comments about my little consulting practice, I replied. Lisa nodded slowly. I knew you were doing well, but I didn't realize you were competing directly with us. Dad was still studying the acquisition documents, his expression cycling between shock, confusion, and something that might have been respect. Sarah, he said finally, I owe you an apology. I clearly underestimated your business capabilities. The acknowledgement was significant, but it came after years of dismissal and rejection. Dad, I didn't build Apex to prove you wrong about my abilities. I built it because I love business consulting and I'm good at it. But I won't pretend that your lack of confidence in me wasn't motivating. Over the following 3 weeks, Dad conducted thorough due diligence on Apex Business Solutions. He met with several of our clients, reviewed our financial records, and consulted with industry experts about the acquisition proposal. The feedback was consistently positive. Clients praised Apex's service quality, professional competence, and measurable results. Financial analysis confirmed that we were significantly more profitable than Mitchell & Amp Associates and had stronger growth prospects. On December 18th, Dad called to accept the acquisition offer. The acquisition process took 3 months to complete, involving legal reviews, financial audits, and regulatory approvals. On March 15, 2024, Mitchell & Amp Associates officially became a subsidiary of Apex Business Solutions. The integration was smoother than I had anticipated. Mitchell & Amp Associates' remaining clients were pleased to learn that their consulting services would be enhanced with Apex's technology platforms and modernized service delivery methods. Tom embraced his new role in business development, working closely with Apex's sales team to learn contemporary client acquisition techniques. His performance improved dramatically when he was given proper training and realistic expectations. Lisa transitioned to operations management for the combined firms, applying her organizational skills to larger-scale challenges while developing strategic planning capabilities. Dad remained involved as chairman emeritus, contributing valuable industry relationships and historical context while adapting to a reduced operational role. Within 6 months of the acquisition, we had won consulting contracts worth over $1.5 million, hired 8 additional employees, and expanded our service offerings to include specialized industry verticals. 1 year after the acquisition, I was invited to speak at the Regional Business Consultants Conference about successful consulting firm mergers and modernization strategies. Traditional relationship-based approaches and modern technology-focused methods can complement each other effectively when implemented strategically, I told the audience. The most profound lesson wasn't that success is the best revenge against family members who underestimate you. The lesson was that sometimes families need external pressure to recognize internal capabilities, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is prove that better leadership is possible. Today, our family business relationships are healthier and more productive than they had ever been when I was excluded from Mitchell & Amp Associates. We hold monthly family business meetings where everyone contributes to strategic planning discussions based on analysis and expertise rather than family hierarchy. If you've ever been dismissed by family members who should have believed in your potential, remember that their limitations don't define your possibilities. Build your own success, demonstrate your capabilities, and create opportunities for relationships based on mutual respect rather than inherited assumptions. Sometimes the best way to heal family business dynamics is to show them a better way to do business. If you enjoyed this story of family business acquisition and corporate justice served, please give this video a like and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of people who turned rejection into opportunity. Share your own family business experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to prove your worth to family members who underestimated your capabilities? Thank you for listening to my story of strategic patience and corporate vindication. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply becoming the boss.